The knock came at exactly 7:12 p.m., sharp and confident, cutting through the quiet music and the soft glow of candlelight. Emily felt it before she heard it, a sudden tightening in her chest, a warning she couldn't explain. This night had been planned too carefully, too perfectly, and perfection always made her uneasy. Daniel stood near the window, his back half turned, his posture calm but alert, like someone waiting for a signal. Emily knew then that the night was about to change. She had dressed with care, choosing the blue dress Daniel once said made her look like the woman he fell in love with. The table was set for two. Wine waited untouched. Everything about the evening suggested romance, yet something invisible pressed against the room. Emily took a slow breath, trying to quiet the feeling that this dinner was not meant to be private. "Did you invite someone?" she asked, keeping her voice light. Daniel turned toward her with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. It wasn't guilt. It was resolve. "Just give it a minute," he said. "Please." The knock came again, louder this time. Emily's fingers tightened around her glass. Memories stirred in answered calls, long silences. Holidays spent pretending she didn't care. She didn't want to guess, yet her mind already knew. Daniel walked to the door without hesitation. When he opened it, the past stepped inside. Her parents stood there, older than she remembered, carrying years of distance between them. Her mother's eyes widened first, shock melting into emotion. Her father stood straighter, his expression guarded but heavy. For a moment, no one moved. The world felt paused, like a held breath. Emily's heart raced. 3 years? 3 years since the argument that started small and ended everything? 3 years since she chose her life with Daniel and they chose not to understand it. She had told herself she was fine without them. Standing there now, she realized that had never been true. Daniel stepped aside, opening the door wider. "Come in," he said gently. Emily looked at him, stunned. "You planned this." He met her eyes, steady and honest. Yes. The room felt smaller as her parents entered, their presence filling every quiet corner. Emily didn't know whether to move forward or step back. Her emotions collided, anger, relief, fear, longing all at once. Her mother broke first. "Emily," she said, her voice shaking. That single word cracked something open. Emily swallowed hard, forcing herself to stand still. She wouldn't run. Not this time. They sat at the table, the place settings suddenly wrong, the space between them too wide. No one spoke. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, marking time they had already lost. Daniel stayed close, but didn't interrupt. He poured water, adjusted a chair, gave them room to speak without forcing it. He had planned this, but he wasn't controlling it. That mattered. Emily's father finally cleared his throat. "We didn't come to argue," he said. "We came because we should have come sooner." Emily looked up, surprised. His voice was softer than she remembered. "I waited for you to call," she said quietly. Her mother's eyes filled. "So did we." The words hung in the air, heavy but honest. No blame, no raised voices. Just truth. Emily felt tears burn behind her eyes. She blinked them back, refusing to let the moment turn messy. "You didn't accept my choices," she said. "You didn't accept him." Her father looked at Daniel then. Really looked at him. "That was my mistake," he said. "I thought love meant control. I was wrong." Daniel nodded once, respectful but cautious. He wasn't there to win approval. He was there for Emily. The tension in the room slowly shifted. It didn't disappear, but it softened. Stories followed small ones at first. Her mother spoke about the garden she still kept. Her father mentioned how quiet the house felt without Emily's laughter. Each word built a fragile bridge across the silence. Emily listened, her chest aching. She realized how much she had missed these ordinary details, how much life had continued without her. At one point, she excused herself to the kitchen, needing space. Daniel followed, stopping a few steps away. "I can ask them to leave," he said softly. "If this is too much..." Emily shook her head. "No," she said. "I just didn't expect it." He reached for her hand. "I know. I hoped it might help." She studied his face, the care, the quiet courage it took to do this without knowing the outcome. "You didn't warn me," she said. "I was afraid you'd say no," he admitted. She exhaled slowly. "You might have been right." They returned to the table. The conversation flowed more easily now, though careful. Apologies were spoken not perfectly, not all at once, but sincerely. Emily felt something unfamiliar forming. Hope. The night moved faster than she expected. Laughter appeared, hesitant but real. Her mother smiled at Daniel, thanked him for the meal. Her father shook his hand firmly, a gesture that meant more than words. When it was time for them to leave, her mother hugged Emily tightly. "We won't disappear again," she said. Emily nodded, unable to speak. The door closed behind them, leaving the house quiet once more. Emily leaned against it, overwhelmed. Daniel stood beside her, saying nothing, letting the moment settle. "You changed everything tonight," Emily said, finally. Daniel looked at her, uncertain, for better or worse. She thought about the pain, the fear, the healing just beginning. "For truth," she said. He smiled softly. As the candles burned low and the music faded, Emily realized the night hadn't been about dinner or romance. It had been about courage, about opening a door she'd kept closed for too long. And deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. The evening felt heavier than Emily expected. The door had closed behind her parents, but their presence lingered in the air like a soft echo of unresolved years. Daniel stood nearby, his hand brushing hers occasionally, grounding her in the moment, yet giving her space to breathe. The house, once familiar and quiet, now felt alive with tension and emotion. Emily sank into the chair at the dining table, her hands folded tightly, trying to process everything that had happened. The candles flickered, casting shadows that seemed to dance with the memories of the past. And she realized how long it had been since she'd felt the weight of unspoken words so strongly. Daniel moved around the table with quiet confidence, clearing dishes, straightening chairs, and maintaining a calm presence. He didn't speak much, but his eyes followed her, ready to offer comfort if needed. Emily appreciated the subtle way he handled the aftermath. He had orchestrated the reunion, but now he was letting it unfold naturally. Letting her parents speak, letting her respond, letting the evening breathe. For the first time in years, she felt like the past and present were coexisting without force. And the fragile balance made her chest ache in a bittersweet way. Her father finally broke the silence, his voice low and deliberate. "We missed so much," he admitted, the words trembling slightly. "And we thought we were protecting you by staying away, but all we did was hurt you." Emily looked at him, her eyes brimming with tears. She refused to let fall too quickly. The honesty struck her harder than any argument could have. She had expected blame, anger, lectures, but this was different. This was vulnerability, the kind that made walls crumble quietly. Her mother reached across the table, her hand brushing Emily's, tentative but genuine. "We missed you every single day," she said, her voice soft and steady now. Emily's chest tightened as she felt the warmth of her mother's touch. It had been years since she'd felt this connection. Years since she'd allowed herself to hope that things could return to some version of normal. She wanted to speak, to explain the years, to apologize and defend herself all at once, but words failed her. Instead, she nodded, letting the silence speak. Letting the shared presence say what language couldn't capture. Daniel watched quietly. Never intrusive, his eyes filled with a quiet pride. He understood that healing didn't come from grand gestures. It came from letting the right people stay. Letting the right conversations happen, letting emotions flow naturally. Emily felt grateful for his patience, for the way he had planned the night, not to impress, but to open doors. She realized that love wasn't just romantic dinners or soft music, it was the courage to face difficult moments together, to step into vulnerability even when the outcome was uncertain. The conversation gradually moved from acknowledgement of past mistakes to lighter memories. Her mother spoke of small details, like the garden she still tended, the new neighbors she had met, and the books she had read. While her father shared anecdotes from his quiet walks and daily routines, Emily laughed softly, a sound she hadn't made in months. a sound that reminded her how much she had missed the ordinary intimacy of family. Each small story built a bridge between past and present, a thread reconnecting them to the life they had lost. Hours seemed to pass in minutes as the evening continued. Apologies were offered and accepted, though not perfectly or fully healing rarely worked that way. Yet the atmosphere softened with every word, every glance, every shared smile. Emily felt the tightness in her chest slowly unwind. She realized that this night, carefully planned by Daniel, had not been about fixing everything at once. It had been about opening the first crack in a wall that had stood too long, giving space for reconciliation, and allowing love to flow where fear had once ruled. Later, after the table was cleared, Emily and Daniel stood by the window watching the night outside. The streetlights cast a soft glow, painting the room in muted gold. And for a moment, the weight of the evening seemed to lift entirely. Emily leaned against him, letting herself breathe fully for the first time since her parents arrived. "You didn't have to do this," she said softly, her voice carrying awe and exhaustion. Daniel shook his head, his expression tender but honest. "I did," he said simply. "I knew it mattered to you." Emily looked at him, seeing the depth of his care, the quiet bravery it had taken to orchestrate this reunion. He had risked uncertainty and possible disappointment because he loved her enough to believe in the possibility of healing. In that moment, she understood that romance and love were not always about grand gestures. They were about courage, patience, and unwavering support. Her parents' visit, though brief in hours, had left a lasting impact. Emily could feel it in her chest, in the way her heartbeat had steadied, in the warmth that now filled the spaces that had been empty for years. She realized that forgiveness was possible, that love could be restored, and that connections once broken could be rebuilt if people were willing to be honest and vulnerable. Daniel's presence had been the catalyst, but the change was hers, to her choice to open her heart, to let the past exist without letting it dominate her life. As the night wore on, the house quieted again, but it was a different quiet now. It was not the tense, expectant silence of uncertainty, but a calm filled with relief, understanding, and hope. Emily and Daniel walked through the rooms slowly, touching objects, remembering small details of their life together, and savoring the peace that now settled over them. The night had been emotional, dramatic, and tender all at once. Yet it had been handled with a careful balance of restraint and sincerity, leaving room for growth and connection. Emily paused at the staircase, looking back at the dining area where her parents had sat, imagining the weight they carried out the door and the lighter steps they now took. "This night changed everything," she whispered, more to herself than to Daniel. Daniel came close, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Not everything," he said softly, "but it changed the way we face things together." Emily felt a shiver of understanding pass through her. He was right. This night was not about erasing pain or pretending the past didn't exist. It was about moving forward with honesty, love, and courage. Finally, they moved to the living room, sitting together as the candles burned low. Emily leaned into Daniel's chest, exhausted but filled with a profound sense of relief and warmth. "I didn't realize how much I needed this," she admitted quietly. "To have closure and yet to feel hope at the same time." Daniel kissed the top of her head, a gentle, grounding gesture. "Love isn't always easy," he said, "but it's worth facing the hard parts together." Emily closed her eyes, letting the words settle. She knew he was right. The night had been carefully planned, but the real power lay in the courage to face the past, to embrace vulnerability, and to allow healing to take root. As the house grew still, Emily reflected on the journey that had led her here, from distance and silence to reconnection and understanding. She realized that life, like love, required patience, trust, and sometimes the bravery to let others in, even when it felt uncomfortable. The night had been more than a dinner or a reunion. It had been a turning point, a quiet, emotional shift that marked the beginning of a new chapter for her family, for her relationship with Daniel, and for herself. In the calm after the emotional storm, Emily and Daniel held each other, feeling the depth of their shared love, strengthened by the night's events. The reunion with her parents had been emotional, dramatic, and healing, yet handled with respect and care, leaving them all with a sense of hope and a renewed connection. Emily understood finally that love's greatest power was not in grand gestures or perfection, but in the willingness to face reality, embrace vulnerability, and move forward together. The night ended not with fireworks or dramatic declarations, but with quiet understanding. Emily and Daniel walked through this softly lit house, savoring the peace and warmth, reflecting on the emotions, the reconnections, and the hope that had blossomed quietly but powerfully. This night would remain in her memory not for its drama, but for the courage, honesty, and love that had shaped it, a night where hearts were opened, bridges were rebuilt, and healing quietly began. And as they finally settled by the window, looking out at the calm streets, Emily knew that life had shifted subtly but profoundly. Love had faced fear, courage had met vulnerability, and the night had proven that even the most complex emotions could find resolution when hearts were willing to stay open. The future felt uncertain, as it always would, but now it also felt full of possibility, grounded in honesty, trust, and the quiet power of shared love.